So there are some new changes coming to Social Security. Lawmakers in Congress are now trying to avoid a government shutdown, everybody, which could happen this week. And the House Democratic leaders are still wrestling with a strategy to avoid that default. So welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is your fourth stimulus check update, and we have a ton of news to go over in today's video. So you want to be sure to stay until the end.
And if there's not enough clarity, then you need to get clarity, and people need to know what tax reforms and where we stand nationwide and where the inflation is, all the things I've talked about. So.
I have some good and bad news surrounding Social Security. This year's annual report moved out the projections for when the combined trust funds that pay retirement, survivors, and disability benefits will deplete their reserves to 2034, 1 year earlier than had been projected last year. At that point, 78% of Social Security benefits would be payable, so changes to fix the program could include tax increases, benefit cuts, or a combination of both. But so far, Republicans and Democrats have not agreed on a way to approach the issue. One planned on the Democratic side is called the Social Security 2100 Act and was last introduced in 2019 and had 209 co-sponsors, which all the support came from Democrats.
No, I didn't. You know what I said? I said, let's wait and see whatever we need. We'll need to have a good idea. The main thing is inflation. If it's transitory or not, you have a better idea as, once we get into it a little bit longer. But right now, inflation's still high.
Social Security relies on the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund to pay retirement and survivors benefits. The fund is now expected to be depleted in 2033, 1 year earlier, at which point 76% of scheduled benefits will be payable. The Disability Insurance Trust Fund, which pays disability benefits, will be able to pay full benefits until 2057, 8 years earlier than the last projection, when 91% of benefits will be payable. Combined, those two funds will be able to pay benefits as scheduled until 2034, at which point just 78% of benefits will be payable.
Now, I just want to say something about the news we received last night about the Senate parliamentarian. Last night's ruling was extremely disappointing.
What are your thoughts on Social Security, everybody? Should President Biden increase the Social Security benefits? Tell me what you think in the comments below. So, the release of their short-term spending bill. Speaker Nancy Pelosi, everybody, and her leadership team were expected to pair the two must-pass measures in an attempt to ratchet up pressure on GOP lawmakers. The Republicans have adamantly opposed voting to raise the debt limit, but the plan as of Monday morning remained unclear, as House lawmakers returned to Washington for the first time in roughly a month. Republican leaders have sternly warned their Democratic counterparts that they will refuse to cooperate on any bipartisan plan to neutralize the looming crisis over the nation's debt limit.
He's facing this country, and that is what I think the president is trying to do. I think once we start discussing these issues in the Congress, there will be differences of opinion, but I think there is a consensus, at least within the Democratic caucus, that now is the time.
Still, senior Democrats have been so far unwilling to acknowledge an alternative that does not require GOP support, that doesn't require GOP votes. The majority party is eyeing a stopgap spending bill through December 10th, with December 3rd as another possible option. Now, the Democrats are going to have to pass some sort of spending measure by September 30th. Otherwise, the federal government will shut down. Some Republicans have said that they're willing to back a continuing resolution with that extra aid as long as Democrats drop the debt limit, which would mean ceding a major point of leverage. In a letter, Pelosi said to lawmakers, the debt limit is a shared responsibility, and I urge Congress to come together in that spirit on a bipartisan basis, as it has in the past, to protect the full faith and credit of the United States. Republican leaders have insisted for months that Democrats control Congress and the White House, and therefore have the power to stave off a debt limit on their own. But with such slim majorities in the House and Senate, many centrist Democrats are not comfortable with unilaterally owning an upfront increase in how much money the government can borrow, likely the only action allowed by the special budget maneuver that the party is using to pass President Biden's social spending bill.
From Afghanistan resulting from a fatally flawed political decision, and we're still facing a public health crisis putting a strain on our health care system and our entire economy. And despite the finger pointing that President Biden has tried to do, we're seeing the real impact of his failed policies. Every one of these crises, from the border to Afghanistan, require our attention immediately. But you haven't heard much more than a peep from our colleagues on the left. Instead, they're focused on jamming through a $3.5 trillion spending bill. Even if you spent $5 million per day, every single day of the year, it would still take almost 2 1,000 years to spend $3.5 trillion. Think about that. $5 million a day, 365 days a year, would take 2,000 years to spend $3.5 trillion. So they're either completely tone deaf on the left, or they're playing a game of hide the ball in an attempt to divert attention from these very real problems that are facing our country today. You might find yourself asking, rightfully so, how will this package help the crisis our nation is facing now, today? Will it help secure the border? Will it bring home Americans who were abandoned in Afghanistan? Will it encourage folks to talk to their doctor about getting? The answer across the board is a definite no. This reckless tax and spending spree will not do any of the above things. What it will do is add to inflation, which is already at the highest point dating back to at least 2010. With recording breaking inflation and American families feeling the squeeze, it is long past time for Congress to pass some physical restraint of American families across this country. They have to have a restraint, so why wouldn't we have to have it? But the real kicker, as if spending $3.5 trillion is not enough, is what they want to spend it on. If you think the price tag is shocking, wait until you hear what programs are going to be funded with your taxpayer dollars. Tucked into this legislation is a laundry list of progressive initiatives to expand Medicare, fund climate programs, and provide universal preschool and free college, all while inflation is going sky high. With this bill, Democrats are painting a vision, their vision for what they think America should be, not what it is. And that is a socialist welfare state with handout programs from cradle to grave,